All right, guys. So we have Thomas Massie in in the House of Representatives, one of the final sessions of 2025, and he turns on Trump over Venezuela in powerful speech. So let's see what he has to say.
Previous presidents told us to go to war over WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, that did not exist. Now it's the same playbook, except we're told that drugs are the WMDs. This is about oil and regime change. Mr. Speaker, James Madison warned us that in...
Not to toot my own horn, guys. I said it too, and I'm just saying. But yeah, this is oil and regime change, 100%, and this is why Thomas Massie is probably the most based person in the government right now. Rand Paul is a good one too, and honestly, those are the only two I can think of.
part of the Constitution is more wisdom to be found than in the clause which confides the question of war and peace to the legislature and not the executive. Madison called it the crown jewel of Congress. The framers understood a simple truth. To the extent that war-making power devolves to one person, liberty dissolves. If the president believes military action against Venezuela is justified and needed, he should make
Wait a second. Trump announces bombing of Mexico?
During his interview gone wrong with Sean Hannity, Donald Trump casually announced that the United States is going to start bombing Mexico. He does not use hypothetical language. He does not suggest that this is a mere thought experiment. It is not, some people are saying. He says we are now going to start hitting land in Mexico with regard to the cartels. We will talk about the legality, the political consequences, and all of it.
So, first, this is my first time hearing about it. First, everything. I feel like he's only doing this because it got proven that Venezuela is not really the cartel problem. And everyone knows that Mexico has always been the cartel problem. There's shows about it, Narcos, Breaking Bad. Like, these are fictional shows, yeah, but, Mexico is the cartel. That's where it comes from. Everyone know this, in Venezuela, maybe there's some cocaine flowing through there. Maybe. I feel like they're only doing this because, if they don't, it really just kind of just nails in the fact that Venezuela was all for oil and regime. But now they're saying, hey, maybe we were wrong about Venezuela and the drugs, but we're going for Mexico now, so we have the right intentions or whatever. But let's see what he has to say.
But here is Donald Trump very casually. Are we going into Colombia? Maybe. Are we going into Cuba? Sure. Are we going to try to take Greenland by force? Yeah, maybe. But we're going to start going into Mexico and hitting land.
And we are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country. But the cartels are running, and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year. The drugs, it's horrible. It's devastated families. You lose a child or a parent. Parents are dying too with drugs.
We've talked about the difficulty of when you say, where is the headquarters of Antifa? Because it is really not an organization. It's this free form, kind of loose thing. We've talked about the difficulties of fighting Hamas in Gaza because you're talking about a population that is intermixed with civilians just in random buildings and the difficulty of it. How are you going to bomb cartels? How do you know who are the members of cartels for the purposes of bombing? But that's only like a mere technical detail. There's sort of like a few overarching elements to this. First of all, the legality. In the normal world order, you don't just get to bomb a sovereign country because you feel like it. Mexico is not an enemy state. There's no declaration of war. There's no authorization for the use of military force. There's no congressional approval. And just saying cartels, that doesn't magically make the entire thing legal. If the standard is criminal organizations operate there, that describes half the planet. That doesn't mean that the United States would be justified in starting to bomb. Now, secondly, there's the kind of like alliance issue with Mexico.
If the border's closed, the cartel would be on. I thought this was common knowledge that. Hold on. I thought it was common knowledge that the CIA. Everyone knows the CIA brings in drugs. Like, whether you call it counterintelligence or whatever you want to call it, there's a black market. There's like a decent chunk of our economy since Reagan has come from black market, CIA, drugs, just that whole thing. I mean, we could get into the war on drugs. It was a whole thing, but I thought that was common knowledge. I thought everybody knew that, like, the CIA even if they don't bring it in themselves, they let it happen, And so Trump's whole thing, like J.D. Vance in his speech earlier about the ICE shooting, he was still saying that, Trump closed the border and we were proud of that, If Trump closed the border, then drugs shouldn't be getting in. Plain and simple, This is not an excuse to bomb another country. And Mexico has a lot of problems, specifically with Scheinbaum, the president, which is not a Mexican name, but we won't get into that. Yeah, so, what the fuck? I mean, let's see what else he has to say.
Mexico is not a random country Trump can bully for applause, although that also I would be against, but it's a different scenario. Mexico is one of our closest trading partners. Trump did his whole USMCA thing, which involves Canada and Mexico. Mexico is deeply integrated into the American economy. We are highly dependent on Mexico for supply chains, manufacturing, agriculture, even energy. And Mexico has a president, and that is President Claudia Sheinbaum. You don't bomb your ally and then act shocked when the cooperation is pulled overnight, which would be devastating to the American economy. Now, this is maybe the most dangerous part because Trump doesn't seem to understand it. Cartels are not governments. They are not an army with a uniform. They are not static targets. If the U.S. starts bombing inside of Mexico, the cartels are not going to complain by filing a grievance with the United Nations. The cartels are going to respond by kidnapping Americans, by killing Americans, by targeting American tourists and business people and aid workers and journalists, and they are going to do it immediately. That is how criminal organizations operate. Trump talks about this like a video game. We're going to start dropping bombs and win, problem solved. It would almost certainly escalate violence on both sides of the border. It'll destabilize Mexico. It'll poison our diplomatic relations for years, and it'll put American civilians in the crosshairs. Americans will die if Donald Trump does that. And why? Because he wants to sound tough on TV. He wants to have stuff to brag to Sean Hannity about. And this is the logical and predictable end result when someone doesn't understand international law and doesn't care about it, doesn't understand alliances and doesn't care about them, and basic cause and effect does not compute in his brain. Reckless, of course, dangerous, of course, but this is the way that this guy operates, and we have limited time to put a stop to it. One challenge in covering politics today is that even when...
Okay, so I don't know anything about this David Pakman guy. He seems liberal, but once again, I said this earlier in the stream. We need to be able to get our information from both sides and then make our come to a conclusion, right? And honestly, if you're still in the mindset of picking a side, you're lost. It's not right versus left. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this. It's us versus them, right? But in particular, whenever you say, like, I am right wing or I am left wing, so let's just do this. I am right wing. The left is my enemy. You are basically saying that the right is always right and the left is always wrong. Is that true? No, it's not true. Because one, there's Republicans and Democrats on Epstein files. Both sides there are pedophiles on both sides, right? So that's kind of a way to say that, well, hold on, the right isn't always right and the left isn't always right either. And so both sides can be corrupt, right? Now with the whole Mexico thing, once again, I really do think he's just talking, first of all. I don't think he's actually going to do anything. If he does, that's going to be bad. I agree with Pac-Man, I guess. Pac-Man. Mexico is an ally, one of the biggest trading partners. Everything he said was true. And just to bomb them. And he did say, when we attacked Venezuela, he did say, and something's going to have to be done about Mexico too. Excuse me. My whole thing, though, is like his whole thing is closing the border. So if the border's closed, what does it matter if there's drugs in Mexico or drugs in cartels in Venezuela or cartels in Mexico? They're not going to be able to get in because the border's closed, right? Or so we thought, right? Are we saying that there's still illegals getting in? And if so, how? You know what I mean? Drugs are a problem, yeah. But it's literally the same tactic used in the Iraq war. They have weapons of mass destruction. We have to go get it. By the way, you want to see a picture of the weapons of mass destruction that they found? I'll show you guys the weapons of mass destruction. Here's the weapons of mass destruction. This is what we took from Iraq. Gold. And not just a little bit, a lot. And there's multiple pictures. These are real. Gold on gold. Nearly 1,000 gold bars worth up to 868 million during a military checkpoint operation. Fact check. Oh, so let's see this. Yeah. So it's saying, so this is Reuters. And every news source has its bias. Reuters is owned by a particular group of people. But let's see. Predates photo of gold bars taken in Iraq in 2003 predates Tom Cotton's time in the U.S. Army. Reuters fact check. The false description of the photograph has been shared online since at least 2020, when it appeared in a post on the Twitter platform, now X, accusing Cotton without evidence of looting gold from Iraq after... First of all, it wasn't him that looted gold. I mean, he got orders, if it is true. The photo has been used since at least 2015 to ridicule the U.S. for justifying its invasion of Iraq by citing the threat of WMD, which were never found. They're not fact-checking that. WMDs were never found. The harvest of democracy. The 2003 photo was taken years before Cotton's 2005 enlistment or 2006 deployment in Iraq. The insignia on the uniform of the man in the photo also does not match Cotton's battalion. So it's not Cotton. Okay, so the fact check is saying that it's not Tom Cotton. So good for him. But this was 100% a 999 gold bars found in a truck that was stopped by U.S. soldiers from the 173rd Airborne Brigade at a checkpoint on the outskirts of Kirkuk, Iraq. So, we lied about WMDs in the Middle East. Never found them. We clearly lied about drugs in Venezuela because as soon as we arrested him, they quickly rewrote the indictment, which we went over earlier. And now he's saying we might go after Mexico. But I think that's all talk. I don't think that's actual news. But it is kind of crazy. Trump hit with nightmare breaking news, or JD Vance says the assassination was really awesome. Huh. Real quick.